Alexander Powell froze in the doorway. His hands rose slowly to his head. His breath wouldn't come. The wheelchairs, both of them, sat empty against the wall. And on the floor, his housekeeper was doing something with his paralyzed twins that made his blood turn to ice. What? His voice came out broken. What is this? 18 months ago, a drunk driver ran a red light and destroyed Alexander Powell's world. His wife, Catherine, was driving their twins home from preschool. The impact crushed the driver's side. She died instantly. Jack and Jordan survived, but they didn't walk away. Severe spinal trauma, T12L1 damage. The doctors were clear. The boys would likely never walk again. Alexander built a fortress around his guilt. The best specialists, round-the-clock care, state-of-the-art equipment, everything controlled, everything measured, everything safe. The boys sat in their wheelchairs like prisoners, quiet, barely responsive, eyes that once sparkled now just stared. 3 months ago, Abigail James walked through his door, 29 years old, hired to cook, clean, help around the house. Nothing medical, nothing specialized. But Abigail saw something no one else did. She saw boys, not diagnoses, and she refused to give up on them. For 3 weeks, while Alexander traveled for business, Abigail worked with the twins in secret. Gentle movements, songs, techniques she'd learned when her younger brother had been told he'd never walk again after a bike accident. Her brother ran marathons now. That Tuesday afternoon, Alexander came home early from a cancelled meeting in Denver. He heard something coming from the therapy room, something he hadn't heard in 18 months, laughter. He walked down the hall and opened the door. What he saw stopped his heart. Before we begin, hit like, subscribe, and tell me where in the world you're watching from. If you've ever watched someone fight for a miracle everyone else called impossible, this story will break you open. Alexander's $3,000 Italian shoes felt glued to the floor. Abigail looked up at him, her hands stilled on Jack's legs. The boys sensed something shift their smiles, fading, eyes moving to their father. "Mr. Powell," she started. "What are you doing?" His voice came out harder than he meant. "Why are they out of their chairs?" "I'm helping them." "Helping?" He stepped into the room, heart hammering. "You're not a doctor. You're not a therapist. You don't just—" He gestured at the empty wheelchairs, at his sons on the floor. "You don't do this." Abigail's jaw tightened, but her voice stayed calm. "They don't need to be in those chairs all the time. That's not your call. Mr. Powell, if you just listen, get them back in their wheelchairs." His hands were shaking now. Now. The room went silent. Jack's bottom lip started to tremble. Jordan's eyes filled with tears. Abigail looked at Alexander for a long moment. Then she nodded. "Okay." She helped Jack first, lifting him gently, whispering something soft Alexander couldn't hear. Then Jordan. Both boys reached for her as she buckled them in. Not for him, for her. That hurt more than Alexander expected. "I need you to leave," he said, voice hollow. Abigail stood, wiped her hands on her jeans. "They were happy, Mr. Powell. Just go." She walked past him without another word. The door clicked shut behind her. Alexander knelt beside his sons. Jack's silent tears cut straight through him. Jordan stared at the floor, small shoulders shaking. "It's okay, buddy," Alexander whispered, but his voice cracked. "It's okay. Daddy's here." Jack turned his face away. Alexander stayed there on his knees, hands trembling with something he couldn't name, fear, anger, confusion, all of it crashing together. He'd just seen his sons moving, actually moving, their legs lifting, their faces bright with joy, and he'd stopped it. He looked at the empty mat where they'd been sitting, at the wheelchairs where they sat now, at his sons, who wouldn't look at him. What did I just do? The question echoed in the silence, and he had no answer. That evening, Alexander sat alone in his study. The city lights blurred through the window. His bourbon sat untouched, ice melting into nothing. He kept seeing it, the empty wheelchairs, his son's smiles, Jack reaching for Abigail instead of him. When did that happen? When did they stop reaching for me? He knew the answer. 18 months ago, the day everything broke. Catherine had been driving the boys home from their preschool recital. Jack wore cardboard bee-wings covered in glitter. Jordan had a paper sun taped to his shirt. She'd sent Alexander a photo while he was in a board meeting in San Francisco. He never opened it. She called once. He silenced it. The drunk driver ran the red light doing 70. The impact crushed the driver's side instantly. By the time Alexander's plane landed in Boston, Catherine was already gone. The boys were in surgery. He remembered the hospital fluorescent lights that burned his eyes, machines beeping in rhythms that felt like mockery, doctors speaking in careful, measured tones. Severe spinal trauma. T12L1 vertebrae. We're doing everything we can. But hung in the air like smoke. 3 days later, the prognosis came. Jack and Jordan would likely never walk. Nerve damage, compromised function. Physical therapy might maintain muscle tone, but miracles, those didn't happen in real life. Alexander buried his wife on a Tuesday. His sons watched from their new wheelchairs, too young to understand why Mummy wasn't coming home. He made a promise at her grave, kneeling in mud, rain soaking through his suit. I'll take care of them. I swear to God, I'll take care of them. But grief doesn't care about promises. For a year, Alexander threw money at the problem. The best doctors, the best equipment, specialists from Switzerland, protocols from Germany, experimental treatments from Israel. Nothing worked. The boys grew quieter, more distant. Eyes that once sparkled with mischief turned flat and empty. Alexander told himself it was the injury, the trauma, the loss of their mother. But deep down, he knew the truth. They'd lost him too. He'd been so focused on fixing them that he'd forgotten to see them. And now, 3 months after hiring Abigail James to bring some warmth back into his cold, sterile house, he'd just caught her doing something that terrified him. She'd gotten them out of their wheelchairs, and they'd been happy. At 2 in the morning, Alexander couldn't take it anymore. He reached for his tablet and pulled up the security footage from that afternoon. He had to know. What exactly had she been doing with his sons? The timestamp read 2:47 p.m. Alexander pressed play. Abigail sat on the mat, legs folded beneath her. Jack and Jordan were beside her, not in their wheelchairs, but on the floor. She was humming something soft, hands moving gently along Jack's legs. There you go, sweetheart. Her voice came through the speaker. Just a little stretch. That's it. Alexander leaned closer to the screen. Jack's foot moved, just barely, a small flex of his toes. Alexander's breath caught. He rewound it, watched again. It happened. It actually happened. His son's toes moved. He scrolled forward. At 3:02 p.m., Jordan reached for Abigail's hand with shaky fingers. She took it, squeezed gently, and the boy smiled. A real smile, the kind Alexander hadn't seen since before the accident. His throat tightened. He kept watching. Week 1. Abigail singing while the boys were still in their chairs. Gentle, patient, no pressure. Week 2. The boys on the mat. Abigail guiding their legs through slow movements, Jack giggling as she helped him reach for a stuffed elephant. Week 3. Day 4. Jack's toes flexed again, stronger this time. Alexander replayed it 6 times, each one hitting harder than the last. Then he heard it. Abigail's voice barely above a whisper. Lord, the doctors say they can't, but I see them trying. And trying is where miracles begin. Please, help me, help them. The words pierced straight through him. Trying is where miracles begin. Alexander pressed his palms against his eyes. His chest felt like it was caving in. He'd yelled at her, humiliated her, sent her away. For the one thing that had made his sons smile in 18 months, he checked the live camera feed. Abigail's room was empty, bed untouched. His stomach dropped. She left. Then he found her, sitting on the floor of the boys' bedroom, wrapped in a blanket, back against the wall. Jack curled toward her like she was home. Jordan clutched his stuffed elephant, breathing soft and steady. She hadn't left. After everything, she'd stayed. Alexander stared at the screen, something breaking open inside him. Why? He whispered. He stood, walked barefoot through the dark house until he reached the boys' door. The room smelled like lavender. Abigail's eyes opened when he stepped inside. She didn't move, didn't speak, just watched him with tired eyes. Alexander's voice faltered. I shouldn't have. You told me to stop. Her voice was flat, empty. He looked down at his sons. At the way Jack leaned toward her even in sleep. I was wrong, he said quietly. Abigail studied him for a long moment. Then she looked away, and Alexander realized saying it wasn't enough. Dawn broke grey and quiet. Alexander hadn't slept. He'd sat in his chair, watching the security feed, until the sun started creeping through the clouds. At 6:30, he went to check on the boys. He found Abigail still on the floor beside their beds, blanket pulled around her shoulders. Her head rested against the wall, eyes closed, face soft in the early light. She'd stayed all night. Alexander stood in the doorway, chest tight. Jack stirred first. His eyes blinked open, landed on his father, then immediately searched for Abigail. "She's right here, buddy," Alexander whispered. Abigail's eyes opened. For a second, she looked disoriented. Then she saw him, and her guard went back up. She sat up slowly, careful not to wake Jordan. "I'll get breakfast started." "Wait." She paused but didn't look at him. "I watched the footage," Alexander said. "All of it." Abigail's jaw tightened. She stood, folded the blanket, set it on the chair. "Then you know I wasn't hurting them?" "I know." Silence stretched between them. "I saw their toes move," Alexander continued, voice low. "I saw them smile. I saw—" He stopped, swallowed. "I saw them happy." Abigail finally looked at him. Her eyes were tired, guarded. And I need to understand, how did you know to do that?" She didn't answer right away, just stood there, arms crossed, like she was deciding whether he deserved the truth. Finally, she spoke. "My brother, Daniel. He was 12 when he had a skateboarding accident, broke his back. Doctors said he'd never walk again." Alexander waited. "My grandmother, she was a physical therapist. Before she retired, she didn't accept it. She worked with him every single day for 2 years. Stretches, movements, prayer. Things the doctors said were pointless." Abigail's voice softened. "He walks now, runs, lives a full life. And you learned from her." "I watched. I remembered." She paused. "When I saw Jack reach for that toy on his 3rd day, hear his fingers move just slightly, I knew. Your sons aren't finished fighting." Alexander's throat burned. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you wouldn't have let me try." Her eyes held his. "You would have said I was overstepping, that I didn't know what I was doing." He couldn't argue. She was right. "They need you, Mr. Powell," Abigail said quietly. "Not your money, not your protocols. You." The words hit him like a punch. Before he could respond, his phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out. A text from his assistant. "Your mother is on her way. ETA 30 minutes. She said it's urgent." Alexander's blood went cold. His mother never showed up unannounced, unless something was very, very wrong. 2 days later, Alexander sat in Dr. Harrison Reed's office with both boys and Abigail. He'd insisted on new tests, comprehensive scans, everything. Dr. Reed had been skeptical. "We just examined them 6 weeks ago, Alexander. I'm not sure what you're expecting to find." "Something's changed," Alexander said. "I need you to look again." The boys were nervous. Jack kept reaching for Abigail's hand. She held it gently, whispering something that made him relax. Alexander watched from across the room. The tests took an hour. EMG scans, nerve response assessments, muscle stimulation. Jack went first, then Jordan. Abigail stayed close to both of them the whole time, her presence calming them in ways Alexander's couldn't. Dr. Reed studied the monitors in silence. Then he stopped, removed his glasses, stared at the screen. "What is it?" Alexander asked, heart pounding. Dr. Reed didn't answer right away. He zoomed in on the scan, adjusted settings, checked again. Finally he spoke. "There's nerve activity in Jack's lower lumbar region." Alexander's breath caught. "What does that mean?" "It means—" Dr. Reed looked up, confusion written across his face. "It means something is responding. Faintly. But it's there. It wasn't there 6 weeks ago." "And Jordan?" Dr. Reed pulled up Jordan's scan, studied it. His eyes widened slightly. "Muscle response in his right quadriceps. Not much, but measurable." He set down his tablet. "Alexander, I don't know how to explain this. Is it possible?" Alexander's voice shook. "Could they? Medically, this shouldn't be happening." Dr. Reed looked at the boys, then at Abigail. "What changed in the last month?" Alexander glanced at Abigail. She sat quietly, hands folded in her lap, eyes down. "Someone who refused to give up," Alexander said softly. "Doctor." Reed studied Abigail for a long moment. "What kind of therapy have you been doing?" Abigail looked up, uncertain. "Nothing formal, just gentle movements, stretches, songs, presence." "Presence," Dr. Reed repeated. "Yes, sir." He was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Whatever you're doing, don't stop. I'll document everything, monitor their progress. But," he paused, "this is extraordinary. Procortes." Alexander felt something crack open in his chest. Hope. Real, terrifying, impossible hope. That night, his phone rang. His mother's name flashed on the screen. He answered. "Mother." "I'm coming to Boston," Margaret Powell said, voice clipped and cold. "We need to talk about this woman you've hired." Alexander's stomach dropped. "How did you—" "I have my sources. I'll be there tomorrow morning." The line went dead. Margaret Powell arrived at 10 in the morning. Alexander heard the car pull up, watched from the window as his mother stepped out, pearls, tailored coat, hair perfectly set. She moved like a woman who'd never questioned her place in the world. He met her at the door. "Mother." "Alexander." She kissed his cheek without warmth. "You look tired." "I've been busy." "I'm sure you have." Her eyes swept past him into the house. "Where is she?" "If you mean Abigail, she's with the boys." Margaret's lips pressed into a thin line. "We need to talk. Now." They went to his study. Margaret didn't sit. She stood by the window, hands clasped in front of her. "I spoke with Patricia Whitmore yesterday," she began. "She mentioned you've been letting an unqualified domestic employee conduct physical therapy on your sons." Alexander's jaw tightened. "That's not— Do you understand the liability?" Margaret's voice cut like glass. "The danger? This woman has no medical training, no credentials, and you're allowing her to experiment on traumatized children. She's not experimenting. She's helping them. You don't know that." Margaret turned to face him. "You're desperate, Alexander. I understand that. But desperate men make catastrophic decisions." The doctors saw results. Nerve activity, muscle response, things that weren't there before. And what happens when she makes a mistake? When she causes a setback? What then? Margaret's eyes were cold. "I'm calling our attorneys." "You will not. Then I'll report her to the state medical board myself." Alexander stood. "You will leave her alone." "Or what?" Before he could answer, the door opened. Abigail stood there, Jordan in her arms. The boy's head rested on her shoulder. "I'm sorry to interrupt," Abigail said quietly. "Jordan wanted water, and I—" She stopped. Saw Margaret. The room went still. Margaret's eyes moved from Abigail to Jordan and back again. "Put him down," Margaret said. "Mother," Alexander started. "Put him down." Abigail hesitated, then gently set Jordan on his feet, steadying him with her hands on his shoulders. Jordan wobbled. His legs shook, but he stood. Margaret's face went pale. Then Jordan saw his grandmother, and he smiled. "Grandma." He lifted his arms toward her, actually lifted them, with strength, with intention. Margaret stared. Her mouth opened slightly. No words came. "Go ahead," Abigail said softly. "He wants you." Margaret took one step forward, then another. Jordan reached higher, and Margaret Powell, who never cried, who never showed weakness, felt her eyes burn. She turned and walked out of the room without a word. Alexander found her in the hallway 10 minutes later, staring at nothing. "Mother?" She didn't look at him, just spoke, voice hollow. "I saw something today I can't explain." "I know." A long silence. Then, "I need to make a phone call." Alexander's blood went cold. "Mother, please." But she was already walking away. Alexander didn't sleep that night. He kept his phone close, waiting for it to ring. For lawyers, for child services, for someone to show up and take everything away. But the call never came. The next morning, he found Abigail in the therapy room with the boys. She had them on the mat, working through gentle stretches. Her voice was soft, steady. "That's it, Jack. Just a little more. You're doing so good." Jack's leg lifted slightly, his face scrunched with effort. "I see you working, sweetheart. I see you." Alexander stood in the doorway, watching. Jordan noticed him first. "Daddy, look." He flexed his toes. Barely, but it was there. "I see, buddy." Alexander's voice cracked. "That's amazing." Abigail glanced up at him. Their eyes met for a moment. Then she looked away. The rest of the morning passed quietly. Too quietly. Abigail kept to herself. Made lunch, cleaned the kitchen, stayed professional. Alexander wanted to say something. Anything. But the words felt too big for his mouth. At 2 in the afternoon, his phone finally rang. His mother's name lit up the screen. He answered, bracing himself. "Mother." "I spoke with Richard Caldwell this morning," Margaret said. Richard was the family's lead attorney. Alexander's stomach dropped. "And?" A long pause. "I told him to stand down." Alexander blinked. "What?" "I'm not calling anyone. I'm not interfering." Her voice was quieter than he'd ever heard it. "What I saw yesterday. I can't unsee it." Relief flooded through him so fast it hurt. "Thank you. Don't thank me yet." Margaret's tone sharpened slightly. "But I won't be the one who stops this. Whatever this is." She hung up. Alexander stood there, phone in hand, trying to process it. His mother, who questioned everything, who trusted nothing she couldn't control, had backed down. Because of Jordan. Because of what she'd seen. He found Abigail in the boys' room, folding laundry. "My mother's not going to interfere," he said. Abigail paused. "That's good. Abigail, Mr. Powell, you don't have to explain." She set down the clothes. "I understand what's at stake here. For you. For them. That's not." He stopped. Started again. "I need you to know. What you're doing for my sons. I was wrong to stop you." She looked at him then. Really looked. "They're not finished fighting," she said quietly. "And neither am I." Alexander nodded. Something unspoken passed between them. Then his phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "We need to talk about Abigail James. This is Dr. Sarah Chen, Boston Children's Hospital. I have questions." Alexander's chest tightened. It wasn't over. 4 days later, Alexander came home from a morning meeting. The house felt different. Too quiet. He walked through the rooms, calling her name. "Abigail?" Nothing. He checked the kitchen. The therapy room. Her bedroom. Empty. Her clothes were gone. Her bag. Everything. On the kitchen counter, he found a handwritten note. "Mr. Powell, your mother was right to be concerned. My presence is causing conflict in your family, and that's the last thing Jack and Jordan need right now. Please don't stop working with them. They're so close. The exercises are in the blue folder in the therapy room. Dr. Reed can guide you. Thank you for letting me be part of their lives, even for a little while. Abigail." Alexander's hands shook as he read it again. No. He went to find the boys. They were in the therapy room, sitting in their wheelchairs by the window. Silent tears streamed down their faces. Alexander knelt in front of them, heart breaking. "What's wrong, buddy?" Jack looked at him with red, swollen eyes. "Where's Miss Abby?" His voice was barely a whisper, and then Alexander froze. It was a full sentence. The first full sentence Jack had spoken since the accident. "Where's Miss Abby?" Jack said again. Louder this time, desperate. Jordan started crying harder. "We want Miss Abby." Alexander pulled them both close, his own tears falling. I know, buddy." But as he held his sons, feeling them shake with grief, hearing them speak for the first time in 18 months, something crystallized inside him. His mother's concerns didn't matter. The protocols didn't matter. His pride, his control, his fear, none of it mattered. What mattered was the woman who'd given his sons their voices back. And he'd let her walk away. Alexander pulled back, wiping his son's tears. "Stay right here, okay? I'm going to fix this." "You're bringing her back?" Jack's voice cracked with hope. "I'm going to try." He grabbed his keys, his phone, called his assistant while running to the car. "I need an address. Abigail James. Now." "Sir, I can't just." "Now." 10 minutes later, the address came through. Dorchester, a modest apartment building across town. Alexander drove through Boston traffic like a man possessed. Rain started falling, light at first, then heavier. His hands gripped the steering wheel. "Please be there. Please." He found the building peeling paint, shared front porch, narrow stairwell, 3rd floor, apartment 3B. He took the stairs 2 at a time, stood in front of her door, rain-soaked, breathless, and knocked. The door opened. Abigail stood there, eyes red from crying. "Mr. Powell." "My sons spoke today." Alexander's voice broke. "For the first time in 18 months, Jack said, a full sentence. Abigail's hand rose to her mouth. "He asked where you were." Tears streamed down Alexander's face. "You gave him his voice back, and I let you leave." "Your mother." "I don't care." He shook his head. "My mother saw Jordan reach for her, and it changed everything. But it doesn't matter what she thinks. It doesn't matter what anyone thinks." He swallowed hard. My sons need you. I need you. Mr. Powell, please. His voice cracked completely. Come back, not as the housekeeper, as family, as the person who saw my sons when everyone else, including me, had stopped looking. Abigail's tears spilled over. They really asked for me? Alexander nodded, unable to speak. She looked at him, this man, who'd arrived at her door in the rain, broken open, finally seeing clearly. Okay, she whispered. I'll come back. 4 months later, on a Tuesday morning that felt like any other, everything changed. In the therapy room, Dr. Reed and a physical therapist stood watching. Alexander stood by the window, hands clasped like prayer. Jack stood on the mat, Abigail's hands supporting him lightly at the waist. You ready, sweetheart? She whispered. He nodded, small jaw set with determination. She let go. Jack took 1 step, then 2, 3, 4 unassisted steps before his legs wobbled, and Alexander caught him, both of them sobbing. Jordan, watching his brother, pushed himself up, took 2 shaky steps of his own before Abigail caught him, tears streaming down her face. Dr. Reed wiped his eyes. 23 years in neurology, he said hoarsely. I've never seen anything like this. Alexander held Jack close, looked at Jordan in Abigail's arms, and whispered the first real prayer he'd said since Catherine died. Thank you, God, thank you. 10 months later, the Powell Recovery Initiative opened its doors. A foundation funding unconventional therapy for children with spinal injuries. Approaches rooted in hope, persistence, and love. Abigail became the program director. At the ribbon cutting, Margaret Powell stood beside her. Margaret didn't apologize, but she shook Abigail's hand. You proved me wrong, Margaret said. That's rare. It's Margaret now, not Mrs. Powell. Alexander stood at the podium, looking at the crowd. At Abigail. At Jack and Jordan standing beside her, standing no wheelchairs, no assistants. 18 months ago, I thought my sons' futures were over, he said. I thought accepting their limitations was the responsible thing to do. He paused, voice thick with emotion. I was wrong. Hope isn't reckless. Giving up is. And sometimes the most qualified person in the room is the one who refuses to accept impossible. The applause was thunderous. That evening, in the therapy room where it all began, Jack and Jordan raced toy cars across the floor, standing, wobbling, laughing with pure joy. Abigail sat on the mat, watching them with quiet pride. Alexander joined her. Their shoulders touched. You gave them their lives back, he said softly. No, Abigail smiled. They were always fighting. I just refused to let them fight alone. The wheelchairs sat folded in the corner, covered with a sheet. Unused. No longer needed. Jack climbed into Alexander's lap. Daddy, can Miss Abby read us a story? Of course, buddy. The one about the train, Jordan added. I think I can do that, Abigail said, smiling. As evening light filtered through the windows, Alexander realized something. He'd come home that day expecting to find his sons trapped in their limitations. Instead, he'd found the woman who would free them all, not through medicine alone, but through something doctors couldn't prescribe: love, presence, and the quiet, unshakable belief that miracles still happen when someone refuses to give up.